Hey, I'm Ashton Solecki with Chris Gordon on Hellblazer Biz.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, viewers and listeners, wherever you may be in the world right now. You are tuned in to Hellblazer Biz, Conversations with the Stars, with your host, as always, me, Chris Gordon. So buckle up, sit back, and relax as I take you to Roswell Delirium, an intimate journey with actress Ashton Solecki. Everyone, I have the pleasure and the company of Ashton Solecki, actress who is in Roswell Delirium currently. So hi Ashton, thank you for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you. I've seen the film now, I watched it twice.
Nice.
I really enjoyed it. I had
nice.
to watch it twice, as I explained to Rick, because I didn't get it the first time.
That's okay. That's how I felt, because the first time that I watched it, I was terrified, so I think I blacked out a lot because I was just waiting for my performances, so I had no idea. And the movie finished and I was like, Rick's like, what did you think? And I was like, I actually don't know anything about it. And so then I watched it again, and it definitely takes twice.
It does, yeah. It's one you've got to watch, as I say, all the way through as well. You can't just, it's not like a Marvel movie or one of these popcorn movies, you can just switch off for a couple of minutes or just look at your phone.
No bathroom breaks at all.
No, you've got to watch it. It's got to be all the way through, because there's little hints, I think, all the way through to that, which you have to pick up on. And the second time round, I didn't catch the ending, but yeah, I'm glad I watched it a second time. And
good.
It's very powerful film. It really is very, very powerful message, and it hits hard as well, doesn't it?
I mean, ideally so. It's one of those movies, I think, that when you're watching the trailer, you're not quite sure what you're going to get. And I think Rick does that on purpose. He likes that. He likes to do that to people. Anyway, and then when you watch it, you realize what it's actually about, and the heart of the matter is just gut-wrenching. And I like that. Like evil cackle. I like that a lot.
Yeah. It's a mix of the sci-fi, it's a mix of obviously the drama, and then as you get those hints, and I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but you get the ending and you're just like, wow. And you realize it was all built up, and it really pulls you in the heart, and you think, oh wow. Just imagine how many people go through that sadly in the world.
Oh, well. Yeah. Yep.
So the first actual question for you, Ashton, is what attracted you to this particular script or story?
Oh wow. Well, I'm very drawn to stories that make people uncomfortable. Meaning stories that show an ugly side of humanity, or of a person, or an underrepresented group of humans, or underrepresented voices. And these stories that happen to so many people throughout the world, aliens aside, that's a nice, anyway. And we so often just turn a blind eye, turn a cheek to it. And I like that. I like that these stories, when people are watching them, force people, for however long they are, to sit and grapple with the cognitive dissonance that they have, and sit there and squirm and be uncomfortable and cry, and then they can go on in their merry lives. I like that. And I like depth and complexity. I like the type of role that as soon as I book it, I go, yay! Oh God, how am I going to do this? You know what I mean? It's like every time I question my sanity, I'm like, why do I do this to myself?
Well, fair enough. And this, what else? Yeah, I mean, I agree that a film with some depth, obviously not from an acting point of view, but from a watching point of view, I prefer a film which has got some depth in it, and makes you think, makes you question yourself, it makes you question
exactly
your life as well, in a way, because we just start, you can make comparisons, or not in my case in this film, by the way. I'm just, that would have I haven't got that comparison, but it makes you question things, and makes you question what you've seen as well, because like I say, the second time I had to go back a second time, and I was questioned, because I was writing down notes throughout the thing and thinking, why is that happening? Why is that happening? The blackouts and stuff and things. It was it's a good thing to make you think and make you interested in something.
And I think movies like this, I mean, there's so many moving parts, and you can have a film that's set in an insane type of world, but what always makes a film actually interesting is the dynamic between two people, the relationship between two
Mm-hmm.
people, what's happening, how it changes. I mean, you could be set on Mars in the year 6000. You know what I'm saying? And no one will really care that you're in Mars. It has to do with this conflict in between the two people. And Roswell
Yeah.
Delirium in particular, what you learn from the get-go is that the heart of the matter for this film is that it's really between a mother and a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like you say, it could be set anywhere. It just
Yeah.
happens to have been set in that 80s environment, and it's a
Yes.
very clever environment to set it in. Because well, I'll say I'm an 80s kid. I was born in 75. I'm so old.
Cheers.
It's awful. It is. I don't feel it. I feel like I'm 25 all the time. I keep thinking, it was only last year.
I think
it's 20.
everybody feels that way. Yes. I remember being a kid, and then looking at people in their 20s and being like their early 20s and being like, wow, they're so old, they have it all figured out. And then being in the early 20s and being like, we all know nothing. Is that right? We all know nothing. We all agree on this.
Yeah. It pretty much it doesn't change either, to be fair.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It stays the same, sadly. But yeah, so going back, all those references are great. But I see you got ET references and other bits and pieces and which sort of work and play with the plot and go through their little what are they called? Easter eggs. That's the word I was looking for.
Yep. All these little nuggets everywhere.
Exactly. What's the most challenging scene for you in the film? That's a question I should have probably asked later, but I'll just say, what's the most challenging scene for you to have done?
I have just a handful of scenes actually in Roswell Delirium, but my scenes are all of the spoiler alerts, and where you find out the reality of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the most difficult scene by far was the very last scene of the movie, which actually was the audition scenes that I had to do. And it just, let's see. How do I not give away giant spoiler alerts? It's such an emotional scene. Mm-hmm. And it's also very nuanced, and there's a lot to carry at once. And the final scene is this mother-daughter scene where, Firefly, the role that I play, the little girl grown up, has gone through a lot of traumatic experiences. That whole world is a traumatic environment in general, but then, unique to Firefly, there's some really, really heavy things going on. And in the final scene, she gets the opportunity to speak out loud with a person that she loves desperately. And it's a lot of pent up emotions and trauma and all of that. And I remember when we went to film it, I was so terrified. I was so terrified at first, and then finally I just had to say, well, you all the work really is always in the preparation is what I've learned so far. And you just have to trust it and then just go and moment to moment. And the scene was so emotional that, fun fact, when you're incredibly emotional, you can lose the feeling in your hands and your fingers because your body is so, wound up that it cuts off circulation and yada. So I literally couldn't feel my hands in the last scene. And there's a point where I'm supposed to, be playing with this necklace, and I couldn't. I had to use my wrists and my elbows because I couldn't move my fingers. It was very emotional. And I also slept for like 14 hours afterwards. It really just knocked me out. I was like KO'd.
Rick actually did mention that about your hands, because that was once we were talking about that scene, and because he said from a crew perspective, from behind the camera, I think he said he'd made sure you and Ari hadn't seen each other for like 3 months or something. So and he just said the emotion you guys felt when you were given that scene. Again, I'm not spoiling it, but which you went through. He said he looked around and you could hear a pin drop because all the crew were just sitting there going, whoa.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was so powerful. Like you just said, the performances were so good that it just affected everybody on set.
Yeah,
And
everybody was
that's a good thing.
crying. It was a good thing. It always makes me feel very good as an actor when like you're in an audition or a callback or on set or
Mm-hmm.
something and you're just, you're zoned in, you're honed in, you're doing your thing, and it feels good when you're done, and your brain comes back into your body and you're like, okay, I think that felt good. And then you look around and you see somebody else crying and you're like, I got you. Ha! Like I got that one. But yeah, it was really powerful, and also I remember, there's that inner child in me because
Mm-hmm.
how I took that last scene was, take all these things that have happened to you, all these hurts that you may have, that I have, using my personal world as well, and then thinking, what if this is the only opportunity that you have to say what you've always needed to say. This is the only time. And I remember I love this concept of your inner child.
Mm-hmm.
And because this film to me is a lot about, all these things that happened during your childhood. And then as adult, this inner child of you is wounded. And as adults, you have, you're
Yeah.
dealing and grappling with that. And I remember when we went to film my inner child, I was like, okay, I remember having a conversation with myself in my head, like, okay, I need you to come out. I need you, like, inner child, to come out and be here. And she said
Mm-hmm.
no. And I thought, and this is internally, and I was like, I know, but I need you to come out. And she was like, are you sure? It's really raw in here. And I was like, yes. And then this wild thing happened where the adult Ashton was still here, but like this observing in the back while childhood Ashton got to live through Firefly, and so
Wow.
that's why all the emotions are real, is like, you're finding what resonates for you and making it
Mm-hmm.
into this. And it was really beautiful and delicate and exhausting to film.
I can imagine, especially if you've put so much of yourself into that, into the scene and into the
Yeah.
shooting of it as well, to bring that out. Because not everyone does that. Not everyone can go into themselves and find that, that
Yeah.
and that inner child, like you say, and bring those
Uh-huh.
experiences through, or they're too afraid to. So,
Oh yeah.
full
Yeah.
credit and kudos for you to bring that into the film, and
Yeah. Thank you.
knowing that, it makes
Uh-huh.
it, I can see that, I can see from the film, and knowing that now, it's actually,
Uh-huh.
it makes it a lot more special because you can see,
Yeah.
that the emotions and everything were real during the film.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I say it was superb. I mean, all three of you, Kylie and Ari, were phenomenal in the whole film. To be
Thank
fair, I
you.
mean,
Yeah.
you kind of three leads there, but it wasn't
Uh-huh.
just
Uh-huh.
amazing. And how close did you work with them? Because obviously you're the older Firefly. You've got Kylie, who's the
Mm-hmm.
younger Fly. I can't even speak, Firefly. And so, did you guys come together at all to try and discuss how your characters
Um,
were, or because I guess one
I
could feed
I
off the other?
didn't
Or
really, but I knew that, like, I would go to set before I ever even filmed my things. I went to set quite a lot of times just to watch Kylie, because I mean, it's one thing when you read, I mean, everybody has their own lens with which they look at the world. So like when I
mm-hmm.
read a script, I'm seeing X, Y, and Z. When
Yeah.
Kylie reads the script, she's not going to read X, Y, Z. She'll read it through her frame of mind. And
Mm-hmm.
so I came to set to just watch Kylie, like, who is Firefly? Let me see oh, Firefly's got a little attitude. Okay. Okay, and then so watching that and watching if she had any physicality, like she would pull her mouth to the side a bit, like,
Mm-hmm.
like this, and just noting things like that, so that then I could take those kind of little touches and then take them back into my world and embody them so they became natural and part of me as older Firefly. So that's how I worked with that piece of it. But Kylie and I had a couple scenes towards the very end of the movie that we did film on the
Mm-hmm.
same day, and those were really, it was awesome to film with her, because like I say, I approached this from like, this isn't, for me, Kylie or Firefly,
Mm-hmm.
is me. That is me, younger. And so it was wild to film with her while in character, because I'm looking at her and watching the memories that I have as an older Firefly in real time. So I would look at her and really
Yeah.
feel that it was her. And then it would just sucker punch me right in the gut and in the heart and get my feel. It just was so immersive. And it wound up being the same for Kylie in a way. So Kylie would watch me, and then she would see how emotional I was and how it affected. So then that made her realize how much it hurt. And we really, it's like we became one unit. It was so, and it was, Rick was saying that it was one of his favorite parts of filming was watching us together those last couple of days and how we would do things. And it was incredible to watch Kylie in real time level up in her artistry. I mean, I'd seen her film, and then all of a sudden she's pulling out these big guns, and she's so young and incredibly talented, and it was awesome. And Ari and I, we never really worked together like that. Ari and I had instant chemistry. So when I went in for the audition, Rick was like, okay, this is your mom. And I honed in on her. And the way she would look at me, she was really looking at me. And it made it very easy to just hone in and click with her and truly believe that's my mom. And then we just had that from the get-go, which is probably why Rick hired me for the job.
That's really, really cool to hear, especially working with Kylie as well, because obviously there are quite a few films where you've got the grown-up and the younger one, and I've always wanted to wonder how the dynamic will work and whether you do stuff like that. So, going on to set early and seeing how she worked and mannerisms, because I did notice, you did have some of the mannerisms that Kylie had as the younger Firefly as well. So that's just really interesting to know. Were there any improvised scenes or lines at all? Just out of complete random question.
No, not on my end anyway. Not on my end. I was letter perfect on my side. But Rick would encourage people to play here and there. But not my level of Firefly. My level of Firefly was like, I'm on a mission. I have specific things to say. Oh, actually, that being said, in that final scene, we, in between takes, they would, cut and then reset. And then I would improv in between those to keep everything going in a way. So then sometimes we'd cut and she'd walk off and I'd have things I wanted to say. And so in that way, but of course those things are not in the film, but behind the scenes, it was a tool. It was a tool.
Excellent. I mean, a lot of your scenes as well are with Anthony Michael Hall. So how's it filmed opposite him? Because they were obviously searching scenes, shall I say, without again spoiling.
Yes. Anthony Michael Hall plays my therapist, and let me tell you, he makes a great one. He is. I learned a lot watching him. He's so professional, and he. I mean, obviously, he's an incredible actor. But what was awesome to work across from somebody that's the level of professionalism they have is he was so aware of all the technicalities at the same time. So he has this editorial mind as well, like knowing where we're going to cut and knowing his angles and his faces and and all of that really naturally. So it was wild to watch him be present with me and really hold me with his eyes and really look and really ask questions and really be taking me in. But meanwhile, I can see him also honoring like certain technicalities. And I was like, wow, sir, I'm not at that level. I totally rely on the director to be like, you need to, turn your face. I'm like, okay, cool. So he was incredible. And I remember I was horrified by this. I mentioned to you right before we started recording that I'm in an awful industry for this particular problem that I have, which is I'm very bad with names and faces. It's awful. It's so embarrassing. It's horrific. Okay. And when I first met Anthony Michael Hall, we were on set. It was one of the days I was visiting Kylie, and he was also on set. And I just have my head in the ground. Okay. It's buried in sand sometimes. Anyway, and I was talking with him briefly, and I was like, oh, I'm a little nervous, I'm excited. And he was like, don't be nervous, you're gonna do great. And I was like, you too, man. As if he's not this like incredible like career-long professional actor. I was like,
I'm sure he liked that, don't worry. Made you feel at ease, that's why.
He took it in stride, I'll say that. He's a true gentleman.
That's brilliant. I said this to Rick as well. There's actually when you people working opposite people like Michael, there's an actress called Erin Elizabeth Burns who I had on my show a couple of years back. She did film Cell with Samuel Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, like you just said there with Anthony, where he knew what was going, all that, being able to the technical side of things. She
Yeah.
decided her brother had died or been killed, and he was lying by a tree, and they were just meant to walk off. She turned because she decided in that moment on the film, my character wouldn't just leave him. I wouldn't, I'll turn around and go back. And as she turned, she suddenly felt this really strong arm grasp her above her chest and shoulders, and it was Samuel Jackson's arm. And he just turned to her and goes, "You don't want to do it. Remember what he was like when you were and you and." It's just immediately he just had that presence that he knew exactly what her character was thinking and doing, and just they kept it in the film, and it was just like, wow. But yeah, it's just amazing.
I love those. I love those. Yeah, those moments, and when you're just living as if this is reality. Like I actually really hate when people will say that acting and to each their own, but the flavor of acting that I like and am drawn to, and those that I try to surround myself with. So I hate when people will say like, "Oh, acting is just lying or pretending," and it's really not. Like for me, if I'm pretending, then I'm acting, and I don't want to do that. And don't get me wrong, I have done that before, and I hate it. I don't like that. And what I fall in love with acting and actors like Samuel Jackson, like exactly in this moment, is you are immersed in this world and you are just living truthfully under those given imaginary circumstances. And so what you just said about like Samuel Jackson, he's not just understands the world, he is in the world. You know what I'm saying? And so he can react in real time as if it's real because it is real in that world. So I love moments like that.
That's excellent. Dee was the same as well when I spoke to her last week.
Oh my gosh.
And she was I just sat here quiet. I was just listening just because I was just like, wow.
She's chef's kiss. She's incredible.
She was, but she was very much, she's talking about Mary E.T. character and stuff, and she was the same kind of thing. She was just, living as the character, and that's, when you're in films, I find that fascinating. I find that, I've only done, stage acting, something knocked my mic out of the way years ago in school and stuff and uni. I'd love to carry it on, but I find that when you can immerse yourself, it makes it better on screen, I think, because I think it comes through the screen to the person who's watching.
I believe that the camera just magnifies whatever is there. So when there's truth in front of you, and you're watching it through, on the screen through the camera, that's when people are doing emotional things, it hits you. It hits you really deep because that's truth coming through and the camera magnifies that. But simultaneously, the camera magnifies whatever is there. So let's say that somebody is acting, and they're doing the work, but they're, it's more put on. And you can see somebody crying on screen, but it's not like there's some part of our brains that can detect that it's not quite real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think that is like the golden standard to try to reach for and achieve as consistently as possible. That's what all the greatest of all time do, is to be truthful. Not that that's easy, but that's the goal. You know what I mean?
That's fantastic. And it's really, I say, it's great to hear that coming from yourself as well, because obviously it's an acting, a style of acting, and well, it's not. I say it's not acting. But you are living. You're doing the job. But you're doing it. You love what you do, so therefore it's not a job, because you're actually fulfilling it, and you're able to portray yourself and push your own self out there, and create your characters are you, a version of yourself.
It's wild. That's the goal anyway. And I kick myself every time I catch myself not doing that. I'm like, what am I doing?
Excellent. So how do you think the film fits with the current film landscape or industry trends? This is a hard, difficult question. I think it stands out a bit, which is good.
I'm trying to think about how it fit. There are certain types of films that I think it does jive with. like Nope, for example. It's similar to that, but at the same time, it also stands out in the way that I would say this is a bit of uh, not a psychological thriller entirely, but it's in that vein. It's
Mm-hmm.
in that vein, and it's also winds up being incredibly emotional, which I think for that reason alone, I think the film probably is divisive in terms of like audience. I think people will either like really like it and be drawn towards it,
Yeah.
or be like, no, no,
Mm-hmm.
because it is you have no idea what's going to happen, and then all of a sudden halfway through the movie you start putting it together, and the reality that you put together is not pretty, and it's awful to look at, and it's really uncomfortable, and it breaks your heart over and over, and it's confusing. And when people are given those feelings, it's like, that's a divisive thing. You
Yeah.
either watch a movie to feel something and it feels good and you feel the humanity ripped out of you, or you're like, ew. You know what I mean? But it stands out in that way because Rick does not try, and Roswell Delirium does not try to fit into anything. It
Mm.
doesn't try to fit a narrative. It doesn't try to fit a genre. It just is what it is unapologetically.
Yeah, unapologetically, because it does it. That's kind of where I was thinking. It's nice. It's on its own, quite independently.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're right there as well. Because I went in thinking, because originally I'd just seen the initial blurb, I hadn't looked much. I thought it said a sci-fi, whatever it was. I was like, all right, okay. And then with the 80s and the aliens, I was that's what you're expecting. And then you're right. Then you
And
are,
you're like,
because
whoa, whoa,
you're taken on this journey and you're like, whoa, hang on a minute, whoa, this isn't what this.
whoa.
Get the tissues out, wipe my eyes
Exactly. Like, well, I walked into this. Why am I bawling right now? What's happening?
down. Yeah, exactly. Why am I feeling this way? This shouldn't be this. This isn't right. This is that kind of film. But it's good. You're right. I think the direction, the cinematography, the acting, everything in it just works so well that
Yeah.
it just hits you. It's you get these little snippets all the way through the blackouts, and because that's when I
Yeah.
was writing my notes. I was like blackouts, and it goes back to her, and I was like, and I
Yeah.
actually wrote down about things about her dad as well, and I was
Yeah.
thinking my little brain cells, or Poirot's, my little grey cells, like Poirot would say, were just like sitting there figuring
Uh-huh.
things out, and I was like,
And you're
okay.
like,
But I still didn't get
whoa,
it
wait a minute.
until at the end. It was like,
Exactly.
and it was like,
Exactly.
that's why. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I love that in a way, in the way that little kids in particular, and adults too, is just one of the ways our brains in general protect ourselves when we experience trauma of any
yeah,
kind. But kids will block it out entirely. So like
mm-hmm,
there are instances in the non-artistic in our world
yeah,
where people will suddenly remember something that happened to them as a kid 20 years later, and it's like the brain sometimes just is like, we can't take this. People will compartmentalize, push away, and all of a sudden the brain, forces you to make time with it. And is I don't know. So I think Roswell Delirium plays with that a lot too, where all of a sudden reality is coming down, and you as the audience are watching that in real time, and you are wind up experiencing exactly what the grown-up version of Firefly is experiencing, where
yeah,
it's really confusing. It makes you wonder what is real. It breaks your heart at the same time. You don't want to face it. You don't want to believe it. You question everything. No, 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 no. Let me go back. I'm going to watch it again. That's actually exactly what Firefly is doing this whole time. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So you wind up feeling what she's feeling, and mentally and in the heart as well.
Yeah. I guess I get that a lot, because that you're reliving the film, and you're reliving the youth
Yeah.
through her eyes, and then let's say the realization towards the end, when
Yeah.
she's coming to terms with it, and let's say that the facade, or whatever it's called, is just sort of fades away. A reality
Yeah.
hits her of like, actually, okay, this is
Yeah.
really what happened here.
You're like, not so happy.
No, not at all. But again, it's one that it does resonate like that. So for you, what was the most rewarding part of working on the film?
Oh, ooh, being trusted to handle something so large and delicate. That was it. I was honored and humbled and absolutely terrified. Absolutely terrified. And so to have someone like Rick who has such a strong vision, I mean, this is his baby that he wrote and is directing,
Mm-hmm.
but then to also be able to trust in him that he is directing me in the way that needs to be so that I don't have to think, I just have to exist. And he was my favorite director that I have worked with yet. And he would be very hard to top the way that he works with his actors. So being trusted in that way and then getting to be in a film with such incredibly talented people, both well established like Anthony
Mm-hmm.
Michael Hall and Dee Wallace and etc. But then also these incredible kids that
Yeah.
are like, I'm just like, Kylie's incredible. One of my favorite characters in the film is who Roman plays. He plays Jeremy,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Firefly's little like.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just like these kids are the future. They're just incredible.
Yeah, his little glass wiggle like that when he did.
Oh
That
no,
was
who's that? That was Ronald. He's incredible too. I'm talking
yeah,
about
and
Jeremy.
Ronald.
Jeremy,
Oh yeah,
who's
yeah,
like,
Yeah, you got Jeremy the other one. Sorry, yeah, I got mixed
yes,
up then. Yeah,
I love them. They're just it feels very humbling to be in a film with so many awesome people.
yeah, definitely, definitely. I apologise.
Mm.
Yeah, I got the characters mixed up.
That's okay because they're all good.
Yeah, exactly. They were. That's the whole point. You know, like you say, it's
Yeah.
there's what four or five of them. You know, the younger ones, and they were funny.
Yes.
Each had
Yeah.
their own little mannerisms, and they were just so well done and well acted. It was great. And the two
Yeah.
bully girls as well were just like, you
Oh
know,
my gosh.
the way they
Yeah.
did it was just like, I remember that girls like that being back in school as well.
Oh my gosh. Don't we all? Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I remember the first time I watched this film because I make an appearance a bit later in the film, you know, as
Hmm.
reality starts to come in to play. But I remember because like my role, my role is very heavy, it's very heavy
Yeah.
and dark, you know. And but the first part of the film is so light and funny, and I remember being like, "Huh, oh yeah, this is funny." I don't know what I was expecting, just you know, dark the whole time. So it's yeah, roller coaster. They do a great job.
Yeah. I've got to say one line I did laugh at yours, and it was just a little line in the psychiatrist's surgery where he's like, "Life is but a dream," and you're like, "Shaboom." So I just, I've got to say that just cracked. I just like that was just the way you just came out with it. I was just like, cause it was just I just laughed. It was quite, I think probably because it was a little light-hearted moment in that
Exactly. The
seriousness of
sarcasm.
yeah,
Exactly. The
exactly.
sarcastic, like,
Yeah, it was just brilliant. Are there any inspirations or homages in the film that audience may miss? Maybe I think we kind of talked about it, like the little 80s
Ooh,
bits and bits. But
yeah, I mean, oh gosh, there's so many references. Uh, there's a million reference. Oh man, I don't even know. There's just a million references. Good luck keeping track. I just, one of my friends just came to a showing that we had in LA, and he is like an 80s guru. And
mm-hmm.
he's like, I'm not sure there was dialogue for the first like third of it. It was just reference after reference after reference after reference. And he was saying that his brain was being scratched in this like beautiful way where he was like, boom, boom,
Yeah.
reference, you know, and so that, but then I would challenge people when they watch it to really pay attention and try to find the instances where all may not be what it seems to be.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what I
there's
mean?
quite
But
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. I think that's what my mistake was. Again, the first time I was picking up on I've got a bad feeling here. I was like, Star Wars. I was thinking I was picking up on I was doing things like that.
exactly.
And then the
Yes,
second
yes.
time round, then it started to sink in, like you say, the where you've just said those
Yeah,
bits which you miss that you need to be
yeah,
keeping aware of because they
yeah,
all
yeah.
add up together.
Yeah, and it's like every time when you're watching it that you feel a slight, just like, that was weird, or like, almost off-putting because it's almost a little jarring or something. When
Mm-hmm.
you're watching the first time, you're like, okay, you know, and then you carry on, keep watching it. It's those moments that are like, pause, hold on to that, comes back into play in a very big way.
Oh yeah. muted myself. Sorry. Yeah, in a huge way that it comes back. It's just it's just like I said to Rick, the phenomenal performances as well. I'll you go out and get out the room with a huge head because your phenomenal performance as the older Firefly and Kylie's as the younger Firefly, and hearing what you said about how it works, it makes sense now about why they were so powerful performances and why it makes the person who's watching the film really feel like you're there, you're experiencing it all. It's just it was a powerhouse of I think everything just gelled perfectly from you guys, from being performances which are sublime, to Rick's vision. From you're welcome, from his vision of the cinematography and the camera, everything was just the lighting, everything just worked because it was just really good.
mean, we talk about the cast a lot in these interviews and things like that, but I think what so many people miss is that the acting is just the piece on top. I mean, in order to build this, it's this whole host of incredible humans that all are in the same vision, but all have these individual parts. It's like creating it's like a symphony, where everybody has their individual part, and acting is just one little section of it. But the vast majority of it are all the cinematographers and production assistants and lighting and sound and focus pulling and the art department and the makeup and the wardrobe and all of this. There's all these moving pieces that as an audience you don't think about. You just see the end product, but everyone on that set, I mean, yes, the cast, of course, but the crew are like incredibly talented, passionate human beings, good, funny, incredible people. Rick really knows how to build a good team, I'll tell you that.
Excellent. And you're right, because there's, I mean, the makeup as well from Firefly, things obviously I'm not going to ruin by that kind of thing, but there's you've obviously got those people who are working hard to get that perfectly right as well, so it has to gel together. I mean, I didn't realize, I mean, I've loved film and TV for decades now, since I was little. In fact, I remember seeing, this is one of the things, the Challenger, which features in the film. I actually do remember coming back from school, because obviously in the UK, I think it was the morning for you guys. In the States, for me, it was the evening. And I remember seeing that live on the news as well, and watching the film. It kind of brought back that feeling to me as well.
Oh yeah.
It was quite shocking. But the point I was making, sorry, was about the crews behind it. I was invited to do an extra a few years back on a local, independent film. I didn't realize how hard it was, or how hard it was going to be. I was there for 12 hours.
Yep,
to film
minimum.
To film basically 5 minutes of a scene, and I didn't realize I'm not going to tell you what my character was. I'll just say it was part of a ring, a part of the lowest type of people you can imagine, in a ring, in a ring of probably grown men.
Okay, got it.
I didn't know. Yeah. They didn't give me that. They didn't tell me. They gave me a bit of the script. That was the direction.
So you're putting it together in real time, and you're like,
in an office environment, because I didn't have to do any of that, which was great. But it was in an office environment, so I did that bit, and then I got told, right, you have to go and lie on the floor, and the crew were there, and I was watching how hard they worked, because I had to lie on a concrete floor for 2 hours in the same position. Because I was meant to have had acid and stuff poured on me and had the comeuppance that the character deserved. But I was sitting there thinking, I was just spent the whole day fascinated with how the crew worked. Because the camera angles for one scene from you, for example, from Roswell Delirium, I can imagine 5 minutes, there's probably about 50 different shots of it being taken from around.
It's amazing. And all the moving pieces and tweaking and everything like that. Like whenever you're watching something and you're swept away by how beautiful it looks, there are dozens of people behind the camera that have made that image, from lighting this way and this way and this way, and then timing in this, and all these moving pieces that, when executed well, are so immersive and God, I love what we do. And I feel so honored to be able to have even just a small part in it, but really it's this whole sea of people working together, and it is the most beautiful feeling. And it's always such a bittersweet feeling when you wrap something and it's the last shot of the whole film or show or whatever, and then you're done. Because while you're filming, as you see, there's like all this work happening, all this work. And, it's a lot of times it's most times go, 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 go. It's always rushed. It gets stressful, especially for crew. It gets so stressful, and they do a great job often of shielding the actors, as they ought to. And then when you wrap, and that's a picture wrap, and everybody breaks into this applause, because it's not just, oh, well done, actor. It's, we did it.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling.
Fantastic. That sounds really, really good. And what was it like going to the Chinese theatre to see it? Because you did for the premiere, wasn't it? I mean, it's been twice now, is it? Is it twice it's had its run there now?
Yes, it had. We had our opening at Culver City Film Festival, I think, and then we just had a showing at the Chinese Theater, which is such an honor, because it's iconic. So it's, sometimes I'm like, is this real life? I'm not quite sure. You know what I mean? Like, I was a little kid living in a tiny town, grew up with my grandparents in the middle of nowhere in Montana. Population less than 2,000 of a town. And then, fast forward, and I'm watching a film that will always be proud and honored to be a part of, and watching it on screen at the Chinese Theater. I mean, it's just, wow, who would have thunk? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's a great legacy to have, and to, like you say, to move on, and it does make you feel proud of yourself, and you should feel proud of yourself as well for that. For what you for that achievement. It's amazing. Not many people get to do it. So.
It's wild. It's wild.
So is there anything anything you're working on now, maybe, that we might see Ashton in coming up in the future?
Yes.
Are you allowed to say that is?
Yes. I have my first TV show coming out. It comes out on April 11th. It is an 1800s Western, about Teddy Roosevelt, who comes out west after he's faced a lot of grief and trauma in his life. And so this is about the young president before he was president.
Okay, cool.
Wild West. And I play the lead villain, which is very fun. And I get to wear incredible dresses and shoot guns and ride horses and do some dirty work, which is very fun. And it is called Elkhorn, and it premieres on INSP, and then I believe goes to Peacock and Amazon Prime and all these other places, but it premieres on April 11th. So there's that. And then I just wrapped a feature film on Friday, so a couple days ago, and that will be coming out later this year. I don't know if I can say what it's called, but that's cool.
Keep it quiet for now.
Just in case. That's cool, because I got to do my first stunts ever. I have brilliant. A lot of martial arts experience. I do a lot of motion capture and things, but I've never got to do those things on camera, and so that was pretty cool. So some things coming out soon, and that's a weird feeling. And I think Roswell Delirium is available for viewing soon, I believe around May, TBD.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's similar. Yeah, I think that's similar to what Rick said, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm telling you though, it's so weird, because I always just dreamt of doing the things, acting. I never thought about the part where people get to see it, and it's strange. It's strange, but it's exciting.
Cool. So and weirdos like me bring you onto a show to talk to you.
Yeah, and then weirdos like me are like, let's hang out.
Yeah, so it's really cool. Is there anything you'd like to say before I stop recording? Because we've been talking, and I don't want to keep you talking. I'll talk to you all day, to be fair, Ashton. But
I mean, fair, likewise. And yeah, it's much later there for you. No, I don't think there's anything left to say, except for truly, I mean, thank you so much for taking your time to chat with me. I really thank you. You're lovely to talk to, and I feel honored that you would even consider chatting with me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. That's nice.